this presentation also so that it can be referred later also by the participant. So as I mentioned, I'll be covering brief about what is AWS, what is cloud computing, what are the IT roles available for you, how to get started. And if you have any questions, actually feel free to put your question on the chat. And towards the end of the presentation, you can also talk to me directly. Okay. So to begin with, actually, I'm hoping that the participant in this presentation will be from the different backgrounds. Somebody may be knowing cloud computing, somebody would be in IT, some would be totally new and looking for the jobs. So in that perspective, I'll be covering the presentation. Okay. So in this, actually, this is just a brief description about our NGO, Career Guidance Council. We are into this education and learning scheme of the NGO, and we conduct different program sessions for free for the students and the job seekers. We have volunteer working in different organizations. So we conduct offline session also in Hyderabad, as well as this kind of online learning also. And this program today also is also part of one of the program from Career Guidance Council team. So first, let's understand what is cloud computing. And if you have any inputs, actually, you also can feel free to unmute yourself and give your opinions also during the presentation. And also you can type on the chat window so that this session will be interactive, and then we can have a kind of a dialogue actually for this presentation. I don't want this to be a monologue wherein I am only talking and you are like kind of you are just listening. It is not, as I mentioned, actually, I will not be able to cover everything about what is AWS. It is not practically possible, but I just want to give you basic overview and just to make you comfortable to get started with AWS learning. And I am also like preparing for one certification right now for AWS, that is AWS Solution Architect Associate. I'm going through some learning modules actually, and this is sponsored by my company actually. I'm just going through that program. So I have encountered recently a lot of learning materials and some video tutorials and things. So that experience actually basically I just want to share with all of you. I'll also be covering what are the different cloud certifications are available related to AWS that you can opt for. And cloud computing, AWS has multiple job offers, actually different domains that I'll be talking, like for fresher, for IT experience, even for a IT person who is into IT for some years and you want to shift to cloud. This is the time to move to the cloud. Actually, it has the entire industry, I would say most of the companies are moving towards clouds, especially the startups. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
So what is cloud computing? Just to understand, it's basically is like we use electricity, right? And at the end of the month, we get some electricity bill that this is how much consumption of electricity you have got. So, and this is your bill. So this is like electricity. I'm just giving one very basic example so that we can understand it and correlate it easily. So what happened actually, cloud computing is also in the same regard. In that, various cloud provider like Amazon, Azure from Microsoft, and Google Cloud, IBM Cloud. There are multiple cloud providers are there, but AWS is the first cloud provider. And I would say that they kind of brought this field actually. Other have kind of replicated what AWS already has. And AWS is the market leader in cloud computing. So AWS, Amazon says that I will give you all the computing resources. I will give you computer, CPU, whatever. Just give me 1 second. So AWS says to the company that I will give you the computer, like all the CPU processing power, all the database, whatever IT infrastructure need of your company is there, I will give you. And you just pay me whatever IT consumption you are having, just pay me in that regard. Like if you are just using one CPU of AWS, just pay to the AWS according to that. If your load is increasing, the database, if you are using various services are there, but I'm just telling in a very in a brief thing that you don't think about IT infrastructure. That IT infrastructure is taken care by the AWS. And as mentioned in the definition of this slide also, Cloud computing is the on-demand delivery of IT resources over the internet with pay-as-you-go pricing. Instead of buying, owning, and maintaining physical data center and server, you can access the technology services such as computing, power, storage, and database on need basis from the cloud provider like Amazon Web Services. Okay. So what happens actually? See, we also like have some computing resources at our home, right? That we have our own desktop or laptop, and whenever we buy a laptop, right, we choose the what is the operating system it should be having, whether it is Intel or whether it's AMD, how much physical drive on my laptop should be having, what is the hard disk, what is the SSD, and like various configuration. Where when we buy one machine for ourselves, we will thought for that. So likewise, actually for every companies, they also need IT infrastructure. They need like hundreds or thousands of computer or even more than that. Before cloud computing, what happens actually? Any company, if they want if they like want to have their IT services, any banking, financial, or any startup company, they need to buy previously their own IT infrastructure. They need to set up their own data center. And like as I mentioned, like depending upon the need and the requirement of the IT company, they may have hundreds of computer or thousands of computer. And it is not only computer, they need to have storage, right? All everything. They need to set up their private internet internet network, their private internet network, so that they can combine all the computer resources, everything into that. And this make lot of investment from the IT companies actually, especially from the startups actually. And it is for big IT infrastructure, these are like in lakhs or in crores or even in like millions of rupees the IT company has to spend. So, but what is their business actually? Their main business is not like IT to have the IT infrastructure to set up the data center. For example, let us consider the example of Ola company. Ola is into cab cab provider service, right? What is the business of Ola? It provides the cab facility, on-demand cab facility. Or what is the business of Uber? That is also one of the competitor of Uber. It provides the cab services on demand. But in order to run their services, mobile app, web application, in order to provide the application to the end user, they need in a backend lot of infrastructure actually to run that like application, to manage the processing of getting the application from the customer. So it required like huge investment actually. So what AWS, Amazon Web Services, says to the companies is that you don't worry about IT infrastructure, that we will take care of that. And you can take our IT infrastructure services. You can buy like CPUs, multiple CPUs, whether Windows, Linux, Ubuntu, or whatever operating system you need. You just tell us how many infrastructure you need. You just tell us what kind of databases are you using, whether you are using Oracle, SQL Server, MySQL, and you just tell us how much hard disk drive you required, whether you require SSD, whether you like these. I'm just giving the example actually, and you just pay whatever you are using actually. So see, for a small startup, like for say Paytm, when it came into the market like 10 year or 15 year ago, they had their own services, right? So at the initial time, they were not needing that much huge IT infrastructure to get started. Okay. And as and when their business demands were like kind of keep growing, they were kind of, as per the demand of their business, they were keep adding the IT infrastructure. If they would have opted their own data center. But I'm not sure whether Paytm is using some cloud provider or not, but like Paytm, other startup companies, with the coming of this cloud provider from Amazon, from Google Cloud, or from IBM Cloud, from Microsoft Cloud, what like ease of business it has given to the startup and IT companies is that they can just initially they can just opt for this cloud infrastructure. They can purchase all these IT resources what I mentioned, and as and when their business is growing, actually they will increase the IT infrastructure from the cloud provider, and they will only pay whatever the IT consumption they are doing actually. So cloud also has kind of, as per the practical reports and analysis, it costs less actually compared to maintaining our own data center. So let me just tell you some of the benefits of cloud computing. That when we opt for Amazon Web Services, AWS Web Services, it tells that AWS tell that our services like our CPUs, RAM, our data storage, or whatever the services there are, at present there are 200 plus AWS services are there. But I will tell you some of the basic services in this session today, and how to get started, what are the learning resources are there. AWS tell that if you use my cloud services, you will get these benefits like high availability. My services, it is like 99.99% high availability. Like if you opt for my server from AWS, I will ensure that I will give you the guarantee that 99.99% my server services will be available for you. Predictability, management, speed. See, speed for the business has like tremendously has improved. As I mentioned any earlier, any companies, whether small or large or medium sized companies, whether they want to run a business or whether they have any idea. Earlier, what happened actually, they need to purchase their all the IT infrastructure. But with the coming of this cloud provider, now they don't need to worry about too much about the IT infrastructure. They need to focus on their business, and IT infrastructure costs and services they can get from the cloud provider as an need of their business. Okay, so the agility to for the business has tremendously grown. Cost efficient, as I mentioned, cost wise also, cloud provider services are much cheaper than maintaining our own data center. And reliability, security wise also, it has tremendously grown up. AWS had around like 30 plus international security certification, and they keep growing and ensuring that their services are up to the security benchmarks of the international standards. Scalability is very important term. When any company opts for cloud, scalability refers actually that ability to uh, increase or decrease the consumption of the resources as per the as per the as per the need of the application. For example, say Flipkart is one of the application, right? In normal business routine, like today is like there is no festival season or anything. If we access Flipkart website, there may not be much like requests. I'm not saying that much, but let's say in less than millions of requests. But uh, in like few special occasion like festival occasion, Christmas, Diwali, Eid, or some special days, Black Friday or something like that, the number of requests for their website, like it increases 10 times or even 100 times or even more than that. So what happened actually, when they off the cloud services, they don't need to worry about the backend infrastructure. The cloud provider provide the auto scalability actually. So based on the need of the number of requests hitting to that website or to that mobile application, and whatever the resources in the background are required, cloud provide the auto scalabilities. So suppose today is a Black Friday and number of requests are hitting, say, millions of requests to Flipkart website, and tomorrow like there is no need of that much huge background IT infrastructure. There is not much load to the website. So the thing is that whatever IT consumption you are doing, based on that you will get the monthly bill. So like pay based on whatever you are needing actually. You don't need to pay upfront about all the infrastructure, and you don't need to worry about that whether my website will be able to handle all the load or not. Okay. And cloud computing is there for, say, I would say for the last 20 years, but recently couple of years or even more than that, it has tremendously has gained a lot of attraction in the IT industry. Okay. And Amazon right now has 2 millions of customers actually who are using AWS services. 2 million, we can assume it is a huge number actually. Like 20 lakhs of customers are using AWS services, cloud computing services. And it is right now, it is one of the biggest profit selling arm of Amazon. AWS has become, and with the kind of growth it is getting, even it is suggested that it will increase the amount of revenue what Amazon is getting more than what their main website amazon.com is there. So so this is a brief history of AWS. AWS services launched in 2002 and 2006. It launched various cloud products, and as of now it has 200 plus of cloud services. And some of the important AWS services are in compute. You can understand that our laptop, it has CPUs, right? Intel CPU or AMD or Linux. So we purchase our own limited compute resources, but in cloud you have the flexibility of defining your own compute, that I need this operating system, I need this much RAM, I need this much hard disk drive. So all those things, actually compute is, they have a service called EC2, elastic cloud compute, and that is one of the fundamental service of AWS. Similarly, for storage they have a service called S3, simple storage service. And the good thing about this services are there, as I mentioned, these are scalable in nature. Scalable in nature is like, as and when your need of the business will keep growing, this services capacity also will keep growing. If you like offer those configuration, you need to offer those configuration. Like if you offer storage, like if you buy Amazon simple storage services, initially you offer say 5 GB storage, and then you put, and it is like by default it is auto scalable. Even like if you put more than say 10 GB or 15 GB or 1 terabyte, it will keep growing, and based on your consumption of the resources you will get the monthly bill accordingly. Actually, whatever the compute services you will be using, storage services, database services, the most important database services are like Oracle, SQL, right? So all the services are by default provided to you by AWS, Amazon Web Services. And so let me just go through some of the questions. I'm completely new to IT and wanted to learn DevOps, AWS. Yes, you can do that. So cloud is also, as of now, it doesn't require that only experienced IT person only can do, although it will be like much easier for any experienced IT person who want to switch further into to cloud. There are multiple IT roles are available. Even any new person also can get started with AWS and can do some certification. I'll be telling about the certification. What is the basic thing that I need to focus and learn to understand this? Okay, I'll be covering that. Coding is required for AWS. Coding required, like basic coding knowledge is required. Although in some of the roles like IT infrastructure or SysOps, DevOps, coding will not be that much uh, as compared to developer role, but some kind of like scripting, like Python scripting, or some knowledge would be required. Actually, if you are working in IT, you cannot skip from coding. So depending upon your whether you are developer, it will be like 100% coding. Even for tester QA job also nowadays coding is required. They need to write some automation script. So for them also, to an extent like 50% or 60%, they need to have the knowledge of coding. Similarly in AWS also. Actually, I'm a BCom student. Can I do AWS? If do, then after can I get the job? You can learn AWS. There is no showstopper. I would suggest that first you get a job in your relevant field, come into some big MNCs. Within MNC, keep learning this cloud like skills. Uh, there are hundreds of free resources already available. Like in YouTube, if you devote daily 2 hours, I would suggest that if you daily spend 2 hours in learning cloud computing, AWS, all the services, if you get familiar with that, maybe like in 2 to 3 months you will feel confident about AWS. And then I would also suggest that you write some beginner level AWS certification. I'll be giving the details about that and at the end of the webinar. Like some beginner AWS certification are AWS Cloud Practitioner certification that you can write. And if you put that on your resume that you have gone through some of the online certification, you have done AWS Cloud Practitioner certification, then that will give you huge importance for your resume, and that will help you for assist getting a job also. Please show the history of AWS slide. Okay. Renowned institute. Institute and other thing we'll be talking later. That is, first let me just cover some of the basic thing about AWS. Okay. AWS, as I mentioned, compute, storage, database. We'll go into some of the detail also. I'll be also showing you some of the detail from the live website of about AWS, how these services look like, how these services looks like. I will also be telling you how I'll be creating some compute from the AWS website, storage from the AWS website. And as a beginner, you also can create your own account in AWS. And some of the services for 1 year, or some of the services are lifetime free actually. So you can like do some exploration by yourself for these services and get confident, do hands-on by yourself. Okay. So let me just go to AWS website. Okay. This is a AWS website. And when you go to this website, actually, you will find a lot of resources already available. It will also give you some basic idea about what is cloud computing. They have some videos also, okay, available. They used to have some multiple global webinar also time to time used to happen. AWS reInvent is one of the webinar. See, in November 28 to December 20. Some of the webinar are like in-person webinar, some webinar like AWS Awesome Day webinar. It used to happen like monthly. I have also attended AWS Awesome Day webinar. And what is the purpose of those webinars? Those webinars are delivered by the AWS professionals, and they used to give some basic overview about their services, how to get started, how to use EC2, what is S3 services, how to use AWS databases. So you get the basic idea, and further some tips they will be giving you how you can better further go through that AWS resources and AWS certification. See some of the free online training. So everything is there on the AWS website itself. From free online training, free AWS recommendation, certification. If I just click on AWS certification. So if you are a beginner and just getting started in AWS cloud computing, this is the certification recommended for you. AWS Certified Cloud Practitioner Foundational Certification. And this certification does cost some money actually. Like this cloud practitioner certification, if you further click on it, it will cost you some $75. Okay, so $75 is like some 4,000, 5,000 money you need to invest. So, and there are multiple resources are also there on the YouTube, on the internet, and those resources are for free. They will give you complete end-to-end information on this AWS Cloud Practitioner Foundational Certification. And likewise, there are some other professional certifications are there. AWS Solution Architect Professional, AWS DevOps Engineer Professional Certification. Okay. So Solution Architect certification is for any like for experienced IT person, like for anyone in IT for more than 5 years, and he wants to come fully fledged like into AWS. Solution architect, as the name suggests, that person would be having the overall idea about the various AWS services, and he will suggest those services to the clients based on the need of the IT client, that they will suggest different AWS services and they will provide the complete solution. So for beginner, if you're totally beginner, this is not the kind of certification you'll be taking. For beginner only cloud practitioner, if you just take this certification, this will be like more than enough. And if you just put the certification on your resume, this will greatly help you out. DevOps is also one of the trending field in IT. DevOps, as the name suggests, like development plus operation. So what happened actually in IT? Developer, they do the coding, and tester, QA, quality assurance also we say, they verify whether the code written by the developer are working or not. So this is kind of a flow process being followed in the IT company. Developer do the coding, QA test the coding, and after that it has to get deployed on the server, right? Live. There should be some release team. So nowadays this DevOps team is like, they do all the kind of operation, background operation work in order to put this code written by the developer on the server. So there are like multiple processes are involved, and they also have a huge responsibility. Like CI/CD is also one of the key term in DevOps role. Continuous integration, continuous deployment. There are various tools are available. Jenkins, AWS also has its own CI/CD services. So DevOps person should know all these services. He should have the knowledge about how to build the code, how to deploy the code, how to set up the CI/CD pipelines, and how to like investigate if any issue is coming related to DevOps on production. Uh, in IT company, actually there used to be multiple IT environments like dev, QA, testing, production. So DevOps team used to have the knowledge of all those things. Nowadays container Docker is also one of the term. So it is also like a very big and huge field, and skillful DevOps engineers also are a lot of in demand nowadays in IT. So this, and if you want to like further enroll yourself into AWS DevOps related role, so you should do this kind of certification, AWS DevOps engineer. Likewise, there are multiple other, like if you are into developer role, you want to use AWS services to develop the solution using AWS services, then developer associate, this is very good certification. SysOps administrator, SysOps system operation administrator, this is also one of the upcoming certification, very important. So these people have some operation specific services knowledge, how to handle, how to create AWS services, how to like create logging, tracing, and this is kind of related to DevOps only, SysOps. These people helps DevOps team in a specific operation related task. Okay. Advanced networking as this cloud computing infrastructure, this has like AWS has put into across the world, and they have their own networking IT infrastructure. So networking is also, I would say, is a huge field, and people, especially people who have done previously CCNA, they have some networking knowledge, and this kind of question come to CGC also, that what they should do further in order to upgrade their career. So these kind of cloud networking is specialty they can further grow, and because as I mentioned, cloud setting all these services, as I mentioned initially, I gave the introduction how startup and enterprise company, they get they want to take the services of AWS cloud or some other cloud provider, but in order to set up all these services, they need, the IT company need the specialization, the people who have the like in-depth knowledge about this like services. So one of the specialization people company need is AWS, like advanced networking specialization, so that that person who will be there in the team, he will help in setting up the right networking infrastructure using AWS. Data analytics, database, machine learning. So there are like so many. SAP is also there on the SAP, right? So these certifications are there. So, but for the beginner, actually, this cloud practitioner, this is the recommended certification. So see, if I click on this certification, it is giving me, it is taking me about this page of this AWS Cloud Practitioner certification, and I have some more. So it is telling that it is costing USD $100. Okay, so it is like some 8,000 Indian rupees it will cost you. And what happen actually if you follow AWS, some of the online like this AWS awesome days, AWS reinvent. So sometime even towards some this Thanksgiving Day or this Christmas or Black Friday, some kind of offer and discount also used to come for this certification. Sometime you may get some voucher also that will like through that you will get a discount about this certification. And if you are working already in IT company, lot of IT company give privileges to their employees to get certified, and you can reimburse this amount from your company. So you can check with your company HR that if you write AWS certification, whether that will get reimbursed. So that is how you can just like opt for this certification. So let me just go through some of the questions. AWS Cloud FinOps. See, DevOps is like one of the things. But I told you that DevOps people, they have the knowledge about how to deploy the code, how to maintain the production, QA, all this environment. Suppose if I'm writing code in Java or .NET, these people ensure that my code is getting deployed in various environment of IT through the CI/CD process, continuous integration, continuous deployment. In CI/CD process, some scripting knowledge also required, right? Because on the server, for example, in Linux server, the Java SDK needs to be set up and some related process so that my code should be running. So these DevOps people, what happen actually, they used to have some Terraform, Ansible knowledge also. They used to write some kind of scripting knowledge. They know the CI/CD tools available in AWS services. FinOps and SysOps is also kind of a related field. SysOps is like system operation, or even there is a term nowadays, DevSecOps, development security operation. So these are like kind of a emerging tool, but the base field for all those is like DevOps in IT. AWS jobs, roles and responsibility. AWS job roles and responsibility differs from the role to role. As I was telling you, actually, there are multiple kind of roles are available, multiple kind of certification are available. So if you are new to cloud, if you want to do the administrator kind of work in cloud, administrator, being the administrator, what does it mean actually? Being the administrator, you would be knowing AWS services, you will be knowing the EC2, S3, AWS RDS, relational database services, and multiple other services. And then when company will tell you as an administrator or as a DevOps person that please create these many computing resources for me, create this database storage for me. So you should have the hands-on knowledge about how to go to AWS console, create all these services for you, for the company. So that is how. And if you are a developer using AWS serverless function also, you can just do the coding AWS Lambda, or you need to integrate AWS services into .NET code or Java code. So developer write the code and consume the services provided by the AWS. As I told, AWS has storage services, S3, simple storage services. So if I'm using in that services in my .NET code, so as a developer, I should be knowing what are the endpoint, what are the SDK software development kit I should be using from the AWS, so that I can access the S3 code in my .NET code or in my Java code. So developer will be having that responsibility. DevOps will be having the responsibility to deploy the code to set up the CI/CD pipeline. So depending upon your role, if you are a network administrator, then you will be a subject matter of an expert of giving expertise about how to set the AWS virtual private cloud. Okay, because everything is there behind. Even if you opt for AWS cloud services also, everything has to run in some network. Suppose if you have opted for 100 virtual machine from the AWS, that has to be in some private networking area. Otherwise there will be a security constraint, right? You need to set up the firewall. So there are so many, like, it's complete ocean actually when you think about cloud and or all the networking thing. So complete thing is there, and the people having skill set and some specific expertise in those role, they are kind of required to in the IT project. Similarly, the solution architect, he designed the solution using AWS services. Data analytics, nowadays, see, if for consider ICICI Bank, it has say 20, 30 or even more departments. So data is coming from different departments. They also need to analyze the customer data, where the business is growing. Okay. So they need to put all those data using AWS cloud services. So this data analytics or data engineer, what it will do actually, it knows the AWS data specific services. It knows how to analyze, do the analyzation of those data, how to give the business insight using those data. There are different AWS data services are there, like S3 is one of the basic services, simple storage services. AWS further has like simple like Redshift is one of the AWS services that is a completely cloud data warehouse service by the AWS. So data analytics person has the complete knowledge about how to use the AWS cloud data services and give the business like results to the IT company using that. AWS database also, that is also a completely like I would say a new completely specific domain in the AWS cloud. In IT also, previously people used to work on some specific role only. Not everybody do all kind of thing. Like even in IT company now also people used to have some SQL Server database specialization, Oracle Server specialization, MySQL specialization. And as I mentioned, all these database services, this leading cloud provider like AWS is giving. AWS has its own cloud specific MySQL database, cloud specific Oracle database, SAP database, like CRM also, completely CRM they are having. So company need specialization in a person who is good into AWS database services, how to use the AWS managed services database and all those things. So people do this AWS certified database related course. Security is also one of the very important thing. The person who knows security end to end and how to use AWS specific security services and apply that and provide the solution to the IT company. SAP, machine learning, right? So cloud, actually, even if you get started with AWS now, you may be thinking that I may get stuck with AWS only, but it is not like the case. If you learn today AWS cloud provider, you will understand the various services provided by the AWS. And suppose, for example, tomorrow, if you want to shift into some other cloud provider, say Microsoft Azure or Google Cloud. Google has a cloud services called GCP, Google Cloud Services. Okay, GCP, Google Cloud provider, it is called as a GCP. So those services also you will find it's kind of a very similar actually. So even if you get started with AWS tomorrow, maybe let's say after 1 year, your business needs some other cloud provider. So you will find most of the fundamental basic services from Azure, from Microsoft, from Google or AWS, those are kind of similar only. So don't think so that your knowledge will be like, will not be of use if you move to some other cloud provider. Your basic will remain same because you see, even I am into IT for the last 15 years. I have worked on Azure also, Azure Cloud from the Microsoft. I have some basic knowledge about Google Cloud also. Okay. And these fundamental knowledge of cloud services remain same. And what is the edge of AWS about other cloud provider is AWS has the largest market share. AWS is the leader for the last 10-15 years in the cloud industry. And lot of like big enterprise or startup company, they use AWS. So it has reason actually why company use AWS. It has a lot of benefits. One is from the cloud cost. Just give me 1 second. 1 second. One is from the cloud perspective. One is from the kind of services which is being offered by the AWS. That is like as they are into the cloud market, they have the largest set of cloud services. Their availability, their feature is number one in the cloud. Just go 1 second. Okay. So with this, I just want to go to my presentation actually and give you some kind of further overview about AWS. Let me start the slideshow. So with this presentation, what I will do actually, I will go through some of the basic stuff about AWS. AWS, sorry, actually there is some background noises coming from a. So here in this slide, I have just given some brief overview about AWS. Services, compute, storage, database, networking, AWS global infrastructure. And this slide actually talks about since inception of AWS. Just give me 1 second. My kid is like crying. Just give me 1 second. So this slide talks about some of the basic overview about like elastic block storage and so I won't be going to all this thing in detail. Just wanted to give you some overview, and I understand I just need to give the fundamental overview about that. So let me just go through. So this talks about the AWS global infrastructure. So this is like some old uh, presentation, but they have multiple region across the world. As of now, they have 24 plus global region. So they have set up their IT cloud infrastructure across the world. Availability zone, there is called as a region. So see in region in US, they have multiple region. In India also, they have a region in Mumbai, in Hyderabad. So what this region means actually, they set up their own physical data center across the world in order to provide the high scalability, high availability to the client. Because whenever any website which is like global website like Google, Flipkart, Facebook, all these website which has the customer across the world, and in order to suffice for the request of number of requests coming for that website, the traffic the website should be handling across the region wise. So AWS provide the global infrastructure. Edge location is like for caching the data, putting the data across some specific edge location. So AWS has over the years, for the last 20 years, they have keep setting up all these region data center across the world. In Africa, in Middle East, or in European countries, in India, they have the large huge center of data center. So if you are a company, if you are a startup, if you are working in IT company, and they have their business specific to India location, so they will offer AWS cloud services from the India region, so that it will be faster. Compute, storage, and all those things, that will be faster. So that is how it works out. So let me just move to the next slide. And like top leading companies like Nasdaq, Samsung, these are all using AWS cloud services. Even like this Netflix, which is the streaming services, video streaming services, their entire infrastructure is on AWS. Airbnb, that is also having their own entire infrastructure on AWS. Even like NASA is also one of the one great website, one great researching organization in US. they have their own IT infrastructure. Most of them say they have migrated to AWS. These are the companies which are using AWS. So why enterprise are using AWS? Because they don't need to worry about huge IT infrastructure. They're setting up their own data center, and price also, cost wise, on demand, reserve. AWS like give all the flexibility that it provide all kind of IT infrastructure services, and based on your business need demand, and you just pay for whatever you have like consumed. Increase agility, right? As I mentioned that if you are a startup company, uh, previously to get started with IT, you first need to like along with other important consideration, you also need to think about IT infrastructure, that how many computers I'll be buying, how I'll be setting up the network, how much storage I'll be working. But with this cloud provider, you just like get all those services on rent and you just pay. And even if the number of like users are increasing for your website or your mobile application, AWS will ensure that your website or your mobile application will be responding based on the load, and it will become scalable, and you pay for the amount of IT resources you have just you have used. So business agility has tremendously grown up, and a lot of startup they prefer using AWS services. As I mentioned, 2 million plus companies now, as of now, are using AWS services. So with this, what I do, I will just, I mentioned actually that how you can get started if you are a totally beginner for cloud. And cloud is there for everywhere. Like if you are working in IT, you cannot like skip away from cloud. If you are a database, if you are a developer, you are an architect, you are a manager, you need to have a knowledge of about cloud. If it's gone out of this that when not knowing cloud or just knowing only the related to stuff, even as a developer nowadays, I need to do the coding related to the AWS or IT company. Nowadays they are not restricted to one cloud provider. So some services, if they feel that Google is providing the compute services, operating system, all those things at a less price than AWS, they go for Google. And if they think that DevOps services are provided at a cheaper rate, and the DevOps services by Microsoft are cheaper, they go for DevOps services by the Azure. And similarly, if they find that storage services by AWS is best, so company like used to have some kind of multi-cloud strategy also for their IT infrastructure. And some company, yeah, they used to specifically go for cloud services by AWS or Azure or Google Cloud like this. But these are the like three major cloud provider nowadays. AWS is the leader. Second comes the Microsoft Azure, and then third is the Google Cloud. Google Cloud is also has like kind of, I have done let me just go through some of the question also. I have done HTML and CSS. Please suggest for further. Does it require to learn Linux? No, it doesn't require for you to learn Linux. See, HTML, CSS, and cloud. Uh, HTML, CSS, you learn for if you want to become a web developer, right? Or if you want to become a mobile developer. In order to become a UI developer, you learn HTML, CSS. To on the top of your development skill, you want to further learn cloud because that is very much relevant nowadays in IT. So that will be like added benefit for you. You can just put on your resume that I have AWS cloud basic knowledge. Also, I can create some of the basic services for you. I know how to incorporate AWS services in my code. So that thing you can put on your resume with AWS. What about call for AWS right now from Naukri? I see, even I was checking. There are hundreds or thousands of jobs are there related to AWS. And basic thing is there are less, you are a AWS developer, developer certified person, you are a AWS DevOps certified person, you are a AWS solution architect certified, your chances are getting a market who understand the different cloud AWS, know how to use how just give me 1 second. Okay, I hope my voice is clear now. Okay, thank you, thank you. So see, I'm into Naukri, and if I just search with AWS fresher job, you can mention the location, everything. So of rows related to AWS, so many jobs are there. Yes, for fresher, job may be less compared to a skill, compared to like experienced IT person, but AWS jobs are there. You just need to search in Naukri, Monster, LinkedIn, AWS specific job. I will tell you right now, actually, some resources which will be like very important for you. If you are totally new to, let me just go to my Chrome. I will share this web presentation also with you. W3 School has one section for AWS actually. AWS Cloud Practitioner Certification actually. That is a very good resource for getting started. This W3 School, AWS Cloud Practitioner. So if you, so what happened actually, W3 School team in collaboration with AWS people, they have created this course. And this give a very good basic overview about what is cloud, what are the like basic services, EC2 like Elastic Cloud Computing, how to set up, what is the introduction, how you can use those services. You can go through this tutorial. This is very good actually. And even if you just go through that, understand it, and you can create your own free account in AWS and do the hands-on with AWS services. For a new user, if you set up your AWS account for 12 months, some of the basic services, you will get the detail about that. That will be free. You won't be charged for those services. So this is one very good course you can explore. Even on YouTube, in YouTube, I see this person from the free code camp. His course is very good actually. Even on AWS website, his name is recommended. His YouTube course is recommended. It's like it's a free course, and this person has covered end to end. See, it is like a 13 hours course. He has covered in 13 hours end to end all the like in detailed descriptions about AWS. And AW3 School, this is another. You can also go to Udemy. Udemy is like online IT course provider. And what is the online IT services like courses provider? And what is the good thing about Udemy is that you don't need to purchase like the monthly subscription or the full yearly subscription. You can just search for a specific IT course. Like if I just search for AWS. So see, people like some top instructor across the world. See, this person, Ultimate AWS Certified Solution Architect Associates, he is giving this course for like 389 rupees. And you can, what happen actually, whatever the top course in Udemy is available, whatever the top IT course in Udemy is there, that will come at the top. So see, this person has 4.7 star rating for his course, number of review, number of participants that has enrolled in his course. So with that, we used to get, okay, some kind of like confidence about the course, whether it is good or not, how many students has enrolled in that. It is also, this is Udemy is telling that it is a bestseller course in that, they are having. AWS certified cloud practitioner course. It is just for 389 rupees, right? It doesn't cost much. Even if you just click on this. So what is the good thing about this course is that you will get end-to-end knowledge about AWS, and in just around 400 rupees you can learn all these things. These people, they used to teach some of the practical hands-on exercise also in their course. And you in nowadays, actually what happen, IT companies also are kind of utilizing these kind of online learning platform only, because they cannot have all the like full-time instructor who is explaining end to end. So they used to have, the IT company used to have the business license for the Udemy, and for say if they want to upskill some of the interested IT people, like say 20 people, 30 people, they used to give the Udemy license to those 30 interested people, and they ask that go through this course. After that, you need to write the AWS Cloud Certified Practitioners certification, and that is how they used to upskill the existing resources. So for you also, some of the people were asking actually how to get it started. It is not only about say just going some 50,000 or 1 lakh rupees course. You can learn, or you have all the resources and everything is there for you for free. As I mentioned, for W3 school and this YouTube, this course has been recommended in AWS website. AWS also has one of their own website for learning, and that website is called as Skill Builder. As I mentioned, now I am also writing AWS Solution Architect Associate certification. I'll be writing that in January month. You usually take this certification depending upon how much time you invest. From 2 to 3 months of time is required, or even if you are putting more time, 1 month is sufficient for you to learn AWS like beginner level knowledge. But yes, you should keep doing some hands-on skill. So AWS Skill Builder is AWS own website for learning. You can also create your own account. It is free. I'm having my own account already, so I'm just logging into this. And a lot of courses in this Skill Builder for beginner are free. If you want to learn AWS end-to-end, AWS Cloud Practitioner, AWS DevOps course, so these used to be free. You can just go through. Like this is just a website, learning website. You can explore what are the free courses are there, what are the getting started cloud courses are there, and that will really help you out, this website. So three learning resources I would recommend you if you want to get started and get a deep dive of AWS is, first is this W3 school course. Second is go through this YouTube AWS Certified Cloud Practitioner course. It is a 13-hour course. And if you want to purchase a specific course, these courses, this is also very top quality actually. Even I have gone through recently in the past some of the Udemy courses. And if the rating for the instructor and the number of participants, these many participants has enrolled in these courses. And what benefit you get with these Udemy courses is that you can talk to this instructor also. You can put your queries on the chat window, that if you are trying for some of the hands-on exercises, you can ask your queries to this instructor, and he will reply you on, because you have enrolled in his courses. So let me just go through some of the these links. Let me just put that on the chat for all of you. IT, let me ask another question also. Let me just put, okay, this is first link. This is the another YouTube link I was telling. So see, nothing like it's not like that in one day you will get the AWS knowledge. You need to be persistent. You need to have hard work. As I mentioned, you need to invest time on all these things. Say 2 months or 3 months time, then you will get to know. It is not only about you getting into some institute only for learning. You can just learn if you are really interested, As I mentioned, if you just do cloud practitioner certification and you just put on your resume, then obviously you will get, your profile will be more attractive to the company, because company also tell that if a person has done the certification, IT relevant certification, it gives them more confidence to hire that candidate instead of a person who doesn't have any certification. And this certification also, see, $75 or $100, this is not much costly. It is hardly some 5,000 or 8,000 rupees. So for your career, I must say that you can invest that much time. It would be like very good investment on yourself for your learning. Based on that, you will get a job. And yeah, these are the learning resources you should know. And next, I want to go to AWS. See, I'll tell you how to create the AWS resource account and like explore AWS services by yourself. AWS, let me just go to AWS. But before like trying things, hands-on thing, you should have some basic AWS knowledge, some basic AWS services. And see, you can just create you can sign into AWS console. If you are a first-time user, you want to create your AWS account. I already have an account, so I can sign in with that my account. Let me go to my account. Okay, yeah, here it is telling create a free account. And here it is telling about the learn more about the AWS free tier. So see, creating this account is also very straightforward. You need to just follow some basic form. You need to put your debit card or credit card also. As I mentioned, this cloud services, most of the services for the first user for the first 12 months, and you will get the description for those services also. Those services are for free. But even like if when you will create the resources on AWS cloud, you'll get enough information whether that services is free or not, or what kind of data storage cost you will be getting if you want to create the services. So there is like nothing is like hidden. It is not like that you will be getting surprised that you have created some AWS services on AWS website and you are getting charged. Even you will get some notification also that you have created these services and this is going to charge you this much approximate monthly amount. So don't worry about that, you don't need to worry and learn about AWS free tier. It will give you about enough information that what are the services are free for the first year. It will give you enough information. I have already created AWS account. See, this is my AWS account. And when you create AWS account, what kind of AWS services you want to create? As I mentioned, AWS has region data center across the world. So here it is telling me that I have logged into my AWS account, and while creating AWS services, which region you want to select. By default, it is taking me to US East and Virginia US region. US, it has so many regions. If I want to create AWS services, compute, storage specific to India location, suppose my business is specific to India only, so I would go for this Asia Pacific Mumbai region. And if I create AWS services in this region, means I will get all the services. My services will be hosted into data center specific to Mumbai region. So if I go to see, if I click on these services, here you will get all the services, all services. If I click on it, so for compute, AWS has these services. Even if you just click on the services, it will give you about some description about their services also. Like it will have the documentation about that if you are the first time user. But let me just tell you that right now, if I want to use one storage services for AWS, and that is called as a S3 service, simple storage service. It is telling that scalable storage in the cloud. Let me just click on S3. I want to create AWS S3 service for, and they have a various term like create bucket. I already have one bucket actually, so it is just displaying me. So just follow along with me. This may be looking new to you. Yeah, for this only first we need to get the theory, like understanding about AWS services. So S3 services, like they call it as a bucket actually. So S3 simple storage service, as the name suggests. Here, if I create S3 bucket, then I can store various data files into my S3 bucket. Like I can store PDF file, Word file, presentation, or whatever file, some file related to my IT operation, I can just store. So I can just give the name of my S3 bucket like my first S3 bucket. It will have a lot of information about what kind of like feature you want to select in that bucket. Is encryption. So being a like AWS like professional IT professional, you should know all this configuration actually, what this configuration means, what this setting means. And as I mentioned, actually, if you get this theory knowledge of AWS, if you will be tomorrow using GCP, Google Cloud Services, or Azure Cloud Services, then it will be very easier for you to just switch from AWS to Google, just in case if it is required. So don't think so that your knowledge will be like kind of restricted to AWS only, or what if tomorrow some other cloud provider will come, so what will happen. So you don't need to worry about that. So right now I'm just keeping all the default operation configuration for my S3 bucket. I'm just creating the bucket. So what it is telling me, bucket name must not contain uppercase letter. Okay, it is telling me that my name should not be uppercase letter, it should not be. If there is some error, okay, it's telling that bucket with the same name already exists. So bucket name should be unique. Okay, let me just give some unique name. Okay, this also it is telling unique. Let me give my name, my first bucket Shoaib. Let me keep all other the configuration as same. I am creating simple storage service of AWS. Okay, so it is telling me that my bucket has created. See, it is displaying my bucket. And see, I can upload some of the object from my computer. So let me upload some file, add file from my, say, download folder. And I'm just uploading this image. And it has the option of upload. So as the service is storage service, so what happens actually, we create one bucket, S3 bucket, so we can store our object. So for IT company, actually what happens actually, they have hundreds and thousands or even millions of file. So when they offer simple storage service from the Amazon, they got the like infinite scalability. There is no limit for how much storage they get. So that is the benefit, like scalability, infinite scalability they get from the AWS. They don't need to worry about purchasing the hard disk or SSD or as like a hard disk drive or SSD drive. All this thing is taken care by the AWS for them. And if I just click on this image, so it S3 bucket actually what happens actually, it will generate the unique URL for my image or my data object, whatever the object I store in my S3 bucket. See, it is a unique URL. So I can like over the internet, I can just access this this data file or some image or PDF file over the internet. And some of the other program in some other developer need this, he can also like access it. You can also put the control about whether this file should be public, private, or who should have access to this. So everything like can be done with these services. Similarly, I was talking about EC2, Elastic Cloud Computing. Like this think of this as a virtual server in AWS, EC2 service. Virtual machine, see, as I mentioned, we know that if we have a requirement, we used to buy our desktop, we used to buy our laptop, and that laptop used to have some operating system, some like operating system, right? Linux, Windows, Ubuntu, or those kind of operating system that like you are physically buying for yourself. So with EC2, I mean, AWS is giving you to virtually buy a server. You don't need to worry about where that like operating system is physically, or which data center it is located. Although if you specify from here which region you want to select, you'll get the enough information that where you are buying that virtual machine. So let me just follow instance. Like if you want to, so this is like a process I'm telling, that launch new instance. If what kind of virtual machine you want to buy from AWS, it will say launch virtual machine. And it is asking you what kind of virtual machine you want, whether you want Amazon Linux, Ubuntu, Windows, Red Hat, what operating system you're looking for. Just tell that to the AWS, and it will give. See, AWS Linux, it will give you all kind of, in AWS Linux, free tier is eligible. So see what happened actually, when I will be creating this virtual machine on AWS, I won't be charged any amount, because it's telling that it's telling me about information that this is free tier. I can offer like different operating system. So even for learning purpose, for education website, for people to try out different thing, different software, lot of software SDK are free on AWS. And it will tell me about, this is kind of, think of same thing when you purchase a laptop, what kind of configuration, what kind of like configuration you ask for that shop owner, what kind of like operating system, whether it is x86 or ARM, and what kind of network setting, security group. This is like if you have the networking knowledge of AWS, once you will go to the AWS Cloud Practitioner certification, you will get all the basic knowledge about these services. Then you will be like more confident about creating those services. What is SSH, secure shell, HTTPS? These are all some IT related stuff. So people were talking about me about DevOps. So DevOps people actually, they know about what does SSH stand for, what is HTTP traffic, what is subnet. So these people are like kind of expert in this thing. And advanced detail, when you are creating virtual machine, if you want to further specify some detail. Right now, I'm not specifying one thing. Like I'm just telling that I want Linux machine with t2.micro. It is a free tier. And I'm just telling AWS, just create the operating system for me. Key pair login. So key pair login means actually with username, password, if you want to connect to your machine, if you want to specify some key value pair. So I need to, looks like, if you want to create like username, password for that machine, it is kind of a mandatory actually. I'm already having one key pair. So in this drop down, it is showing me that for me. If you don't have like username, password, you can just always go to this key, create new key pair, and that key pair will be like listed in this drop down. So I'm already having key pair, so it is showing me that up. And now I'll just go and just say launch instance. So what happened, AWS behind the scenes creating this instance for me, and it is telling that successfully initiated launch of this instance. If I click on this, instance state. So once it is launching that like Linux machine for you, virtual machine for you, it will have this instance state. It is telling that it is still pending, running. Okay. It is right now, it is in a running mode. And suppose you have created instance, then there is one other service to how to access this Linux machine, right? You will be thinking how to access that. So there is a AWS like system manager is there. There you need to go and select, and then you'll see that in drop down, all your operating system virtual machine will be listing there, and you need to select that, and then through that you can just through that console you can connect to your instance. And for some reason, if you don't need this instance, you want to delete this region, you need to select that out, instant state. And suppose you don't need this instance, so you'll say that I just want to stop this instance, or I want to terminate this instance. Terminate means actually it will completely deallocate this virtual machine from you. Stop means you can stop it, and after that, if you want to, after like tomorrow, you want to again start this instance, you can move this instance from the stop to start. But once you terminate, you won't be able to get that instance back. So what I wanted to tell you with this actually, that there are so much endless possibilities are there with AWS. And as a AWS cloud practitioner, you should understand these services. like EC2 service, S3 services, AWS, blockchain, cost management. Once you will get the services for your IT company, so some costs also will be associated with that services, right? So machine learning services. So that is how the person should be knowing this knowledge, IT infrastructure, networking with networking knowledge. So I hope like some overview you have got with this session. So if you have any question further, let me know. You can put your question on the chat.